You are made a co-host, sir. You can share the PPTs.
Sure.
Yes.
Are the participants allowed to talk while we
Yes, sir.
go through?
Definitely, sir.
Sorry.
Definitely. Yes, sir. They are allowed to speak, sir. They can just unmute for themselves and they can start
All right.
discussion.
I would request all the participants to keep it very interactive. I am most of you are faculties and far more experienced in the academic world, and I'm no lecturer. I primarily have been a founder of two startups, like Dr. Padma mentioned, um, before jumping into the ecosystem role in 2016, where I started working with NASCOM 10,000 startups, creating the ecosystem for startups in AP Telangana, followed by working with Amazon on building a women in tech platform right from scratch, and then working with a startup called Unimart in terms of growing their global partnerships, and then back to T-Hub, back to the ecosystem role last year around the same time, where I head startup innovations. So my team is primarily the first point of contact that for any startup that gets into this ecosystem, any startup looking for any kind of support and help. We also look at building the community of startups, both horizontally and vertically. Um, Apart from that, building capacity in tier 2, tier 3 cities and academia. I'll talk more on that, how we are supporting academics in terms of you, probably towards the later second half of the structure that I've put forward in terms of talking more about startups. I would request everybody to keep it very interactive. Please ask questions. It also helps us to learn. It also primarily helps me to learn with respect to whatever we are doing, and to understand that, am I making sense or not? Because that's the whole idea of you guys are spending valuable 1.5 hours, and we'll try to maximize the use of these 1.5 hours. I'll just try and connecting the slides. Well, I start pulling out the slides. If any of the
Sir, slide is not visible, sir.
Yes, I haven't shared it yet,
Okay,
madam.
sir.
While I pull out the slides, if anybody wants to talk about any entrepreneurship stint that they would have done in their life, I want to hear that out. Any of the faculty members that are present today would like to talk about any idea that they have pursued, or any thoughts about pursuing any dreams that they would have thought about. So hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Thank you, madam. Anybody wants to put any comment on the chat, or speak out verbally? What do they think about entrepreneurship? Dr. Padma, we can make it very interactive, right? I mean, it
Yes,
just
sir.
doesn't have to be
Yes, sir.
one-way traffic, right? Please, it also helps me understand how am I doing in terms of the whole thing that I'm going to present together. So if anybody wants to share, we'll quickly take 1-2 minutes to understand if you have any idea, I mean, if anybody has any idea about startups, what is a startup? How does the Indian ecosystem, startup ecosystem looks like? Um, or if they have pursued any kind of entrepreneurial stints in the past. Yep, anybody? All right, we'll move forward then. So I'll start with a very important quote that I have always been associated with is like, life is too short, it's startup. So this is something that we kind of keep talking to everybody who we meet, whoever has any idea in the past and had any idea in the past and has been sitting on the fence about thinking, hey, how do I start? Will it be the right move that I can take, given the or given all the responsibilities that we have on the shoulders? But I think this is the right time. Uh, like, given the whole ecosystem, how it has transformed itself in the last 7 years, I think this is the best time for anybody to start. Today we believe that there are around 92,000 startups registered in India, and primarily there are more enablers than startups themselves. So that's a great thing to happen. This is the agenda that will follow. Understand about the startup life cycle. If anybody has any idea about what are the different life cycles that a startup goes through, uh, startup funding stages, uh, at 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 our day-to-day work, we keep coming across many startups, many people who have a lot of misunderstanding around the whole funding ecosystem. So we'd like to drill and take questions around that as well, understand deeply around how funding actually happens, what is the right stage to raise capital, uh, why a startup should raise capital and why they should not raise capital, learn about lean startup methodology. Can I see a show of hands of people who know about lean startup methodology?
Participants, please respond immediately.
Then it looks like if I don't get a feedback, it looks like then either I'm making no sense, or um, you all are faculty members, right? And if you don't see your students in the class not responding, you would feel that there's something wrong, right? So let's not allow that to happen in this forum. All right. So there's a lean startup methodology. We'll talk about that. Then there are different business models for startups. Um, can anybody tell me, like, what on quickly on the chat as to what is a business model for startups, or generally what is a business model? How do we define a business model? Anyone? Any just 1-2 words? Any idea about business models? Dr. Padma, any do you let's start with you then.
Yes.
Since nobody else is responding, if you have any idea.
Sir, business model is where we go for how we can start up a business with a basic idea about how to get the raw materials or the funding, uh, the ecosystem, how it goes on.
Thank you, Dr. Padma. So business model is um, business, that is the business plan. What you spoke about is a business plan. So what is the business model? We'll come to that when we go to the slide. So what you actually said is a business plan that somebody should make before starting, talking about their idea, how do they want to take their whole startup journey, visualize it in their mind and write it on a piece of paper.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else would want to give it a try? Dr. Padma, thank you for trying at least. I mean, kudos to you for trying. Anybody else wants to tell us about what is a business model? Without Googling or ChatGPT. All right, we'll move forward. Then we'll talk about the startup ecosystem, the support network, the challenges, and how do we, as T-Hub, we support startups. So where we'll drill down upon, what have we been doing, and take some question and answers. So moving on to what is a startup. Yeah. So startup is okay. Let's ask one more question here. What do you think is a startup before we get into the typical definition of a startup? Dr. Padma, please do keep filling me if we are making any sense from time to time.
Yes, sir. It's good, sir. You can
Thank you.
continue, sir, please.
Thank you. Yeah. So generally what happens is we meet a lot of people who think any business is a startup, which is typically not the right way. A startup is generally a very young and innovative company that is typically in its very early stages of development and who's working on a unique product, service, or tech, bringing, in terms of bringing a new service, a product, or a tech in the market. And that grows exponentially faster. That is a startup that has capability to grow faster and scale up within like 2 years, 3 years of time. So there's a fundamental difference here between a typical business that works on creating value for their customers, runs for a period of 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and go on. Startup typically sees that growth of 5-10 years in a period of 2 to 3 years. That is what we actually term as a startup. All right. So let's also talk about the Indian startup ecosystem. Where does India stands in terms of how many of you actually knew that we are the third largest startup ecosystem in the world? All right.
Yes, sir. After the formation of this Telangana government, hope so.
That's good to hear, but not really. There's a cumulative effort by rest of the states, by the whole country itself. So we are the third largest startup ecosystem, not in respect to Telangana, but the Indian startup ecosystem ranks third. Any guesses who are the first two? Who rank above India in terms of the startup ecosystem? Anybody can put it in the chat. Anyone? Correct. That's the right answer. What's the other one that we have? It is indeed China before India. And who leads the whole chain over here is, any other guesses? All right. So US, China, and India. And currently, till early this year, the official data, we had over 92,000 registered tech startups in India, and approximately around 8,000 are funded, have been able to raise any form of capital. You might ask me, that's a good thing or a bad thing? That is subjective. And around 108 unicorns that India has produced till date. Dr. Padma, all the faculties are from Telangana, or they are from other states as well?
Pan India, sir.
All right. Okay. So this is the typical startup life cycle. Let's talk about this. So this is the you see this valley of death. This is where most of the this is the ideation phase, prototype building stage, building a minimum viable product, and this is where we'll also talk about the funding, what kind of typical funding that happens for a startup. So a typical life cycle of a startup starts from ideating, identifying a problem statement that they want to solve, building a prototype, then going on to build a minimum viable product, a minimum lovable product that the customers can use, followed by building a full-fledged product that goes to the market, and so on and so forth, where they do iterations. We'll talk more about the lean startup methodology. How is it important? What impact does it make in the startup life cycle? So this early stage till the MVP is when the seed capital, the angels. Can anybody talk about what this FFF is? This is a very interesting thing. What is this FFF in terms of funding? Anybody can take a wild guess about this. So generally, typically when a startup comes to us in this stage, we ask them to go and raise money from friends, from angels, from early seed capital, and FFF. Any idea what FFF is? Family, correct, absolutely. What the other two Fs are? It shows an ID. I mean, if you can also tell us what your name is, we can call it out. That's a great effort that you have put to give us feedback on or an answer. Any other guesses on what are the other two Fs? Can we also know your names? Not finance. Finance is something that they want to raise from those three Fs, but family is definitely one. Dr. Padma, you want to take a guess? All right. So this is friends, family, and the third is fools or father-in-law. So at this stage, generally, it's very difficult for any typical traditional VC or VC, or we call it venture capitalist, to come at that stage, because it's a very early stage of the startup. The models are not proven, and their validation is not completed. So that's why it's very tricky at this stage, and that's why you see a valley of death. Most of the startup fail to raise capital at this stage and they die down. So there's these three people are very important: friends, family, fools, and father-in-laws. Angels that typically come at this stage. Who could be an angel? Anybody can be an angel with some sort of money that they have. And they want and they like a startup. They understand the founder well, and they would want to put some money. And there are some early stage investors who put some seed capital. Uh, so typically at this stage, we advise startups to not dilute more than 5 to 8% of their total company valuation. The next stage is typically when they go on to raise the VC round, the early stage. Typically, um, at the first stage, the seed capital, angels, friends and family round, it takes place where the startups raise around in INR, it would be somewhere around 5 lakhs to 50 lakhs checks. And in early stage, they typically raise from 50 lakhs to a couple of crores. And in later stages, when you see that, that this later stage, they go from over 4 or 5 crores to over 20, 30 or 40 crores, and so on. That's when the Series A, Series B happens. Any questions around this? Or what kind of startups will be successful in India? That's a great question. Um, India is a large country with hundreds of problems that we have. So any startup, let's understand why a startup becomes successful. One, if one is definitely the founder's perseverance uh, to continue solving that problem. Two is figuring out the right problem that is worth solving, and that problem should be large enough. Those kind of startups generally become successful if they are solving something which has a typically huge market. And India itself we are around 1.5 billion people. Imagine creating something for that size and multiplied by multiplied by the sum of money that you're going to command. The whole target market becomes huge and large. So those are the typical kind of startups that are poised to grow in a country like India. Like let's talk about transportation problems. Anybody who solves anything around uh, Bangalore traffic, for example, is poised to grow, because that's a large problem, not just Bangalore, but Mumbai, Calcutta, any more metropolitan faces. Uh, Education for masses, for example, that's something that's the kind of startup that's gonna uh, be successful in a country like India, and not just in India, but other countries in the Indian subcontinent. Any other question? That was a good question. So typically when any startup that comes to us asking for, hey, I have an idea, I want to raise capital, which generally in today's date, it doesn't happen. So a startup has to complete its prototype, build a minimum viable product that is usable, not in the complete format, but some usability, and has beta customers, so that the model is proven. They understand, okay, there is a market. It's not just in my mind, but actually we have users. So once a startup raises, rather reaches that stage, it becomes fairly easier for them to raise cap, go out and talk to VCs with some validation. So that's a typical stage when we advise a startup to go and raise capital if they have to. And at angel seed capital stage, I am reiterating, we advise startups not to dilute beyond 5 to 8%, follow on another 10%. Generally, typically what we see is a startup at a very early stage uh, dilutes 20-30% for a very small amount. That typically leads to the startup getting closed very soon. All right, let's talk about lean startup. How many of you have heard about lean startup? All right. Uh, Typically, lean startup was coined by a VC called Eric Rice. And the idea of lean startup is to build, to measure, and to learn faster. Generally, we see that somebody who's building a product takes 6 to 8 months in terms of ideation, another few months in terms of building a prototype, another few months in terms of going out and testing with the customer. So he's typically already lost around 1 year, 1.5 years in terms of reaching out to the actual customer and testing the product. What Lean Startup says is you build fast, you measure with your customers faster, and you keep iterating and you keep changing the product as your customers give you feedback. That's the whole cycle, and this is the whole idea of not spending 2 to 3 years in terms of only product development, but following the lean methodology, cutting down the crap, cutting down the time, and developing a product within in a very short period of time. And that's where we see a stark difference between the startups that develop in India and the startups that develop in the US. Any questions around that? All right.
Sir, very poor response from the participants. So let us continue the session, sir, because
okay.
they are not responding.
No, there are some people who are responding.
Yes,
Some people are
very
who
few,
are.
one or two.
No, that's okay. I think this is something that people take time to understand. And if anybody has any question, please feel free. Nobody is going to judge anybody in terms of the question that you ask. So that's okay. Yeah, let's talk about some business models now. Dr. Padma did try talking about what a business model is, but uh, let's go deeper into understanding the business models. So, what is a business model? It's a framework. It's a strategy that a business uses to create and deliver and capture value. Uh, in simple words, how am I going to make money? That is my business model. Rest everything kept aside. How am I going to make money? That is why I am doing a startup. That is why I am, putting in so much of hard work. That is a business model. How am I going to reach out to my customers? How are they going to pay me? Is a business model to sustain. Hope this one makes sense. Something that most of you would have heard about: B2C, B2B, and P2P. So B2C is, who can tell me what B2C is in terms of business model? Any wild guesses? It's okay. You can, please feel free to make mistakes. Let's follow. Absolutely correct. That is business to consumer or business to customer. B2B again being business to business. P2P mean peer to peer. Right. What I mean by a B2C model is where businesses, startups sell directly to consumers without um, without any middleman, without any party in between. And there are several other models that fall under B2C. We'll talk more about those business model, like the aggregator model. What have you heard about Uber, Airbnb? What they do is they aggregate cabs, and through their platform, any user can come book cabs and pay directly to Uber. There's nobody in between. And Uber after that pays it to the drivers. Marketplace model, where Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal comes, where uh, I put my products on a marketplace. People like you, me, all of us go to the marketplace. We place orders, pay directly to the company, and the value is delivered. Then is the subscription model like Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Music, etc., where the customer is locked for a period of time, paying subscription and renewal of subscriptions. B2B, for example, like how we use. Uh, who can tell me what SaaS is? What's the full form of SaaS? SaaS is software as a service. Typically, it's licensed. Say, uh, licensed for a month, 2 month, year long. Things depending on what kind of usage do I want to use. For example, Slacks, Freshdesk. Those are SaaS companies. Then we talk about B2B marketplace like Amazon Business, Alibaba, IndiaMart, where they do not sell to customers like you and me indirectly, but they sell to businesses like larger companies uh, looking to procure large amount of materials for their internal consumption, and the services. That's B2B services. Peer-to-peer is like it's peer-to-peer lending. Uh, the largest example or the best example of it is um, in peer-to-peer lending would be uh, Loan Yantra, for example, where I want to raise money and I go to Loan Yantra, for example, and there would be people who would be available to lend me money at some interest rate. So I don't have to go through any banks or something, but I go and provide my credit score over there, and there will be people like whoever has money can come and um, lend me money. Then there are crowdsourcing platforms. Crowdsourcing, I mean, if I do not want to go and raise money from a VC, I can list my startup on a crowdsourcing platform, and there'll be hundreds of people who will be coming there and chipping in money and taking some interest or some stake in my company, or for some returns that I would like to promise them, like Tyke Invest, for example. And there are exchange models like OLX, like Quicker, etc., where I list and I exchange my used products there. Any questions till here? Yes, peer-to-peer is online form of business. So that's how, like, if you can be a bit clear about your question, P2P, peer-to-peer is definitely online. All the transactions happen online. But if you mean something else, please feel free to expand your question. All right. So let's talk about how many of you have heard about the freemium business model? We'll make it quick here. We'll not deep dive into a lot of business models. There are over 31 business models that typically startups have or can evaluate. But we'll start moving quickly. So there's a freemium model, free plus premium. How many of if you use Google Cloud, for example, so you know that okay, Google will give me 10 GB of free storage. But after that, Google is going to charge me. That is freemium. First, it gives me free. For any additional usage after that, I have to pay money to Google. Then is the subscription business model, for example. My apologies for this mix up. Yeah. Subscription business model, for example, Tinder, Spotify, Netflix, where I pay for a certain period of time and the subscription keeps renewing based on the yearly or monthly engagement. Then we have the marketplace business model like Amazon, Snapdeal, where I can sell it directly as the marketplace owner, or I can invite other sellers to come and sell out of that marketplace. There are other business models as well. I'll quickly take you guys through it. Please let the questions keep coming. What business model is best for startup? Very interesting question. So business model, there is no best business model what we can call. Uh, Business model typically depends on your product or service or your line of business. There are unicorns in marketplace business model. There are unicorns in freemium business model. There are unicorns in SaaS business model. So there's no typical right business model that can be termed as best or good. It all depends on the product or service that I'm delivering to the startups and the way I choose to deliver to the startups. So we spoke about freemium, we spoke about subscription, we spoke about marketplace. Let's speak about aggregator business model, for example. Airbnb, it's complete is Airbnb, Uber. Who can give me an example of a aggregator business model in India? This is a very interesting question. Who can give me? Let's try and understand if all of us have understood or not. In the aggregator business model, the service is delivered to customers under their brand name. So here we have talked. We spoke about Uber and Airbnb. Anybody else? Any other aggregator business model that you can think about? Can quickly respond on the chat. Correct. Book My Show aggregates, but it is an aggregator business model. But we would term it as marketplace, not exactly aggregator. Why marketplace? Because it puts all shows that happen in a particular city to come and sell their tickets through Book My Show. Through cinema halls can come and sell their tickets through Book My Show. So we have marketplace model. Anybody else can talk about can take a guess about another aggregator business model that you might have seen or might have used? Heard about Urban Company? Urban Clap. Earlier it was called Urban Clap, now Urban Company. So Urban Company or Urban Clap is a good example of an aggregator business model, where you see that I aggregate as Urban Company, I aggregate uh, service delivery people, and they go and deliver the service under my brand name. Typically what happens is you do not, for example, if I take example of Book My Show, I know that PVR is giving me that service and Book My Show is taking a cut out of it. But when we talk about an Airbnb or Uber or Urban Clap, I'm not concerned about um, the person delivering that service. I am more concerned about I am taking that service from that brand name. So when we book a service from Urban Company, who is assigned, that Urban Clap decides. But we order from Urban Clap because of its service, and if it is because it is Urban Clap. Next is pay as you go business model. Like all the cloud companies that we use, Google Cloud, Azure, AWS. Even in pay as you go, there are two plans, two business models. One is consumption based, how much am I using, and then there's a credit based. Audible, for example, Stripe, other cloud companies, etc. This is a pricing strategy where consumers pay how much they consume. Next is free fee for service business model. Payment companies, all fintech companies that we speak about, Razorpay, PayPal, Stripe, PayU. Like for example, um, if any credit card company, the way it charges its merchants, as the end consumer, we do not pay to while we are making a payment, we do not pay anything to Paytm or UPI. But as the merchant, if I enable or I am accepting payments via PayPal, Stripe, or PayU, I have to pay a commission. That is fee for service business model. Then EdTech business models, freemium subscription, free trial subscription, marketplaces, ad revenue business models. You've heard about Udemy, Coursera, etc. Lock-in business models, where uh, where once you lock-in business model is generally, somebody was asking me what are the best business models. So lock-in is one of very typical great business models that one can have, where you lock your customer in your ecosystem, and it can't go, they don't tend to go beyond your ecosystem, like Apple, how Apple does it, right? Once you buy an Apple iPhone or Apple Watch or Apple TV or a MacBook, you have to get the apps from Apple Store, uh, everything, only Apple ecosystem. You have to get everything from the Apple ecosystem, and you cannot go. So you're just kind of locked in it. API licensing business model, where companies license their APIs uh, for other companies to use their services. This is primarily a B2B business model, not a B2C. Open source, Android, for example. ChatGPT data as a business model, something that the app or algorithm collects data from customers. Like the moment, how does ChatGPT work here? For example, the more queries we ask them, the more data it collects. What kind of questions is being asked? It tries to enhance its model, and then it monetizes in terms of subscription and saying that, hey, my data is very accurate, and Because it's an AI system, it learns automatically based on how much are we feeding into that ecosystem. There's a blockchain business model, free enterprise, razor blade. There are around 31 business models that we can start talking about. Any questions till now? So I didn't want to go through all the, till now I have reached only 14 business models. I don't want to deep dive on the rest of the business models. It's definitely out of the scope of the limited time we have.
One question in chat window, sir. What is a unicorn startup mean?
Sorry, I missed that question. All right, okay. So unicorn is, we all know what a unicorn is, right? It's a mythical animal. It used to look like a horse with one horn on towards its nose. That used to be a unicorn. What do we talk? What do we mean by a unicorn startup? Is any startup that has its valuation crossing $1 billion. Any startup whose valuation has crossed or reached 1 billion USD, that is around 8,000 crore plus, gets a unicorn status. So there are around 108 startups in India who has reached valuations around 1 billion US dollars, that is around 8,000 crore plus. Now, if this is all clear, I'd like to deep dive around what we do at T-Hub as well. Yeah. Please feel free to ask me questions about whatever we have spoken around the startup life cycle, the stages of startups, the lean startup methodology, the funding stages. So at T-Hub, if people know about it, great. If people don't know about it, I would love to talk about what we do at T-Hub and what's T-Hub all about. T-Hub is primarily the India's largest ecosystem enabler and primarily world's second largest in terms of size. First one being Station F in France. We are spread across 585,000 square feet in Hyderabad. It was formed in partnership with Government of Telangana, IIIT Hyderabad, ISB, and NALSAR, and the whole objective being to help startups accelerate their innovation journey. So we understand at T-Hub, there are different things that a startup needs, and typically, there are 6 M's that we support startups with, and 2 P's. 6 M's being money, methodologies, market access, mentorship, motivation, manpower, partnerships, and policy advisory. We'll talk more about what these 6 M's and 2 P's mean. And these are our ecosystem partners. We call it the Telangana Innovation Network, the Telangana State Innovation Cell, the T-Works, which is India's largest prototyping center, the WeHub, Women Entrepreneurship Hub, which supports startups with women in the leading shareholding, the RICH, which is the Research and Innovation Circle of Hyderabad. Thereby, the idea of RICH is to commercialize research sitting in academia. The task, the Telangana Academy of Skills and Knowledge, which primarily supports any company that's looking to set up in Hyderabad, Telangana with skilled workforce. The Emerging Technologies Department, it's a department that works on AI, blockchain, EV, etc. in terms of being the first customer for any startups who are working in these emerging technologies. And the Image, the animation and gaming initiative that Government of Telangana is coming up with. The 6 M's, for example, the money, we help startups raise capital, uh, help them get access to grants, methodologies. We run multiple incubation programs, uh, understand where the startup breakage journey happens, and try to put interventions at various points. Market access, we help startups get businesses from large corporations, where ideally it would be very difficult for any startup to sell to a large conglomerate, but we make that happen. I'll talk more about the numbers. Mentorship, we have over 300 plus mentors who are registered with us, and we every mentor goes through a strong due diligence before they get onboarded. So typically they have to be at least at the CXO level, or if they're a founder, they should have raised at least 2 rounds of funding before they become our mentors. Motivation, we help startups with our community programs, where we invite unicorn founders who are bootstrapped. By bootstrap, I mean they should not have raised any capital, but are still doing great, earning revenues. Startups who have failed, uh, to come and talk to founders and make their journey not as lonely as it generally is. Manpower, we understand that talent acquisition is the biggest problem for startups when they're looking to build on their ideas. And policy and partnerships, where we work with different consulates, international consulates globally, to help startups uh, get access or get a soft landing spot in anywhere across the globe. And policy advisory in terms of building favorable policies for startups from the government point of view. Couple of awards that we won last year: uh, India's Best Incubator by Startup India, and early this year we won the National Technology Business Incubator Award as the Best Incubator for 2023. These are some of the numbers. This is a building, if for people who haven't seen it, this is a building in the middle. We have actively engaged with 3,000 plus startups till inception in 2015, actively working with 300 plus corporates uh, who come to us in terms of solving their innovation challenges. In this process, what we also do is we try to help startups get connected to the leaders of corporations which are globally, say from the likes of Boeing, Collins, State Street, large banks, Pepsi, etc. And they get proof of concepts or POCs, or they get chance to deploy their solutions with these companies. We work with investors in terms of helping startups raise capital, right from pre-seed, seed stage to Series A plus stages. We work with mentors. I talked about academia. We run a very specialized program for academia where we help them build capacity in terms of building incubation centers, doing the need gap analysis as to where does the college stand, helping them make best use of NAC and NBA rankings, so that they get going beyond get up the value chain in terms of the rankings. Also set up incubation centers, help them understand how to run the incubation centers profitably. So this is typically the life cycle that or the methodologies part I spoke about. We start with an idea stage for a startup, and we put right interventions at right points. Like we have a program called Rubrics, which is helping a startup from a prototype to MVP stage. Then we have something called a Lab 32, which is a complete 100-day of go-to-market program, where we help startups build their go-to-market strategy as to, after they have built a minimum viable product, how can they build a full-fledged product, go to the market, start selling to more and more customers. And T-Angel program, where we help startups bridge the gap of funding. Before a startup goes to raise funding, there are hundreds of gaps that they have. Their pitch decks are not sorted, their story is not correct, their balance sheets would not be sorted. So we complete all those gaps in 100 days. So typically all our programs are spaced for 100 days, and the admission rate for our programs is around 3.7%. So typically 700 to 800 applications is what we get for any program, and around 15 to 20 finally make it into our programs. These are some of the startups out of which, if you know about Darwinbox, it's a unicorn from Hyderabad. Um, MyGate is one of our startups. If you happen to live in a gated community, you would know about MyGate. Skyroot is India's first private aerospace company that launched a rocket a few months back. That's from T-Hub. Um Donate card. I don't know if you happen to live in a gated community, if you see a screen near your lift that is powered by I don't know, one of our startups. Satsure, Monitra Health, Blue Semi, Hala Mobility, Chitpongs, etc. These are some of the typical fundings raised by our startups. We have helped them raise capital. Blue Semi 69 million, Bison Go 110, MyGate 67 million. And more than that, the startups who have gone through our programs have been able to raise for example, Lab 32, the go-to-market program that I spoke about, 450 million cumulatively till since 2018, they have been able to raise. T-Angel around 9.6 million. Through our T fund, we have been able to deploy around 1.1 million. SISF is Startup India Seed Fund, 500,000. And through Mighty, we have helped startup raise around 0.9 million. This is what we typically do in our corporate innovation programs, where we build a culture of innovation at corporates. And these are some of the corporates that we work with, right from Meta to Tata to these are some of the corporates that we work with: Boeing, Nvidia, Capgemini, DBS, Citibank, right from BFSI to aerospace to retail, etc. Engineering like Carrier, Raytheon, fintech companies like NPCI, etc. This is the university engagement that we do. We call this program a Kickstart program. It's a very highly niche program that we have created for universities to create incubation centers in their colleges, starting from understanding the landscape, creating a need gap analysis, and then on training the university incubation team on how to run a successful incubation center, helping them train their startups or train their students on entrepreneurial thinking, followed by actually making them go through idea to MVP development. These are some of the universities that we have worked with till last year. And this year we have come up with a revamped Kickstart program that we have already deployed in 5 colleges. This year we have started going out of Telangana. We are just kickstarting as we speak tomorrow in one of the colleges in Pune. Our government programs, where we help other state governments on a build, operate, transfer model. We have worked with Odisha in terms of supporting them at OHub. Now we are working with the government of Bihar in terms of developing BHub, Maharashtra, Goa, Meghalaya, and government of Kazakhstan, where we help them, handhold them in terms of creating a T-Hub like a structure, not just from the building point of view, but also on how to run a successful innovation ecosystem. Our international programs, where we typically help startups from India, not just from the T-Hub ecosystem, but throughout the country, in something called the International Market Access Program, where we take them through different geographies through our partners of like 40 consulates that we work with, in terms of creating a soft landing spot in different geographies, helping them with initial connects of space, of businesses, etc., and manpower. Vice versa, what we also do is we do something called an India Market Access Program for startups globally to come and set up and create jobs in India. This is a value partner network. We understand that a startup had to spend a lot of resources in the initial period of their development. So we have created a very, very, very crucial value partner network of cloud providers, of legal experts, of accounting experts, and give free services to startups so that they do not have to spend any money. This is also extended to our university partners. when they enroll with us for their startups, along with our mentor network and investor network. Yep, that's about it for from my side in terms of the slides that I had. If there are any questions, I would love to take. We're just about on time. Love to take any questions if there are any.
Sir, one question from my side.
Yes, madam, please tell me.
Actually, with this university engagement through T-Hub.
Yeah.
Actually, we are getting connected with MSME and task. We are not connected with the T-Hub. How to go with it?
I'll just share our email ID over here. This kickstart at t-hub.co, or even my details are here. So you can directly email to kickstart at t-hub.co, or you can write to me. I'll loop in my university team that comes under me to get the engagements going.
What are the things we can able to get it through this university engagement program, sir? What are the benefits to the university?
Sure, madam. I'll also touch upon that. Give me a sec, please. So this wireframe model, if you see, this is the typical structure that we make our, we follow through our Kickstart program, where our partners, our Kickstart partners, not only get all of it that is mentioned here in terms of university incubation training, the student orientation on innovation and entrepreneurship, infrastructure gap analysis, and nurturing over a period of 5-6 months. We also enable our value partner network, which is 40 plus value partners that our university partners get access to, our mentor network of 300 plus mentors, our investor network of 50 plus investors that we work with, our corporate networks. For example, if our Kickstart partner has, if a startup at any of the university partner has a solution that can be deployed in Pepsi, we can make that happen. If a solution, if a startup has a solution that makes sense for a Boeing, we can make that happen. If any startup has a solution that is a cracking of a fintech product that can be deployed or sold or co-developed or invested by a bank, we can make that happen. So that's one. So apart from that, we create the whole innovation ecosystem in a college, like how we do at T-Hub, and create a kind of a kind of a outpost of T-Hub in that particular college, where we train the university incubation team, handhold them as to how to run the whole incubation piece independently and in a profitable way. Because we understand that most incubators across the country generally face a problem of profitability and sustainability. Does that answer your question, madam?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Means we can have an incubation center so that we
Yes.
can start up. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes, yes. So
thank you so much, sir.
So no, we support our Kickstart partners right from the designing of the incubation center as to how it should look like. What should the color of the walls be like? What should the color of the chairs be like? What kind of designs should be there? How your social media strategy should be? How you should launch it? Right from there to actually churning out startups out of the college.
Thank you so much, sir. This information may be very much useful to all the participants who are from the different colleges here, sir, in this FDP. Thank you so much, sir.
Somebody has a question. Okay, that's a feedback form. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. If there are no more questions, I think and we are just about on time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
There's a question, why do 90%
yes.
of the startups fail? I think that's a very interesting question. So startups typically fail because of various reasons. One is primarily lack of access to capital when they need it. Two, market size. Say, for example, if I'm solving something which doesn't have a large market enough because of my failure to understand the kind of problem that I'm solving. Three, definitely because of timing issue. Either they might be too late into the market or they might be too early into the market when they are solving a particular problem or when they are starting up. Or being at the wrong place, inability to hire right talent. These are the typical problems, or reasons why generally a startup fails. And again, there are macroeconomic factors. Luck also plays an important role. Hope I answered your question. Thank you. Any other question that I can help answer? Dr. Padma, if there are no questions, I think we are done. We're good.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful session, giving a lot of insights into how to go with it. Thank you, sir. If no questions from the participant.
Yeah, if anybody has any other questions, you have my email ID. I'm available on LinkedIn as well, on Twitter as well. Please reach out to me if there are anything that I can solve or help. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting. I would have encouraged more interaction, but I understand it's okay. Probably something new that we spoke about today, and yeah, looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you all the participants to being with us for the entire day. We'll continue the session tomorrow morning by 9:20. Please, all of you join. We have a session from MSME Director Gulshan Singh Bis, sir. You can get lot of information regarding MSME activities and so on. Thank you, all of you. Have a good day.